Hi there, it's Roz Lee here. It's a very cold, windy, drizzle type January day here in New Jersey. I thought I'd warm things up a little bit by reading to you the first chapter of The Reluctant Billionaire Bride. This is the third book in the series, third and I think final book in that series. The first being The Backdoor Billionaire's Bride, which you can find the video of me reading the first chapter of that somewhere online. And then also The Yankee Billionaire's Bride, which I did a reading of that too. So you can catch those. And here is then the third book, The Reluctant Billionaire Bride. And without further ado, here's the first chapter. Julie stood in the shadowed doorway separating the workroom from the tasting room. The opening night crowd swarmed around the bar, couples mostly, with a few singles mixed in. The locals she'd hired to be the face of Lucky Lady Brewing Company smiled at the patrons as they cashed in the free drink cards they'd handed out liberally all around Butte Plains for the last few weeks. In the half hour or so she'd been standing there, she'd seen at least a dozen customers return, paying for their next drink. "Who would have thought?" she mumbled. A flash of light reflected off the vintage glass insert in the front door, illuminating her hiding spot and nearly blinding her. When her eyes adjusted, she crept forward again, scanning the faces for the newcomers. Scott Ramsey spied her first, waving an arm to get her attention. She waved back, letting him know she'd seen him. "Quite the crowd," he said, joining her in the small alcove. "Congratulations." "It's all your fault." A few months ago, she'd been content with the challenge of brewing craft beers. McKenna's Liquor took whatever bottled goods she sent over, never pushed for more than she could deliver, and didn't ask questions she didn't want to answer. It had been the perfect setup for a woman who valued her privacy as much as she did. "I'll gladly take the blame," Scott said, eyeing the filled capacity room, "but this is all you." Julie shook her head. "All I did was provide a custom brew for your friend's wedding. You were the one who came up with the idea to open a tasting room." She'd been less than enthusiastic about the idea until she'd seen the space he had in mind. Over 100 years old, the structure had housed several businesses over the years, but had retained its character. A sucker for vintage architecture, she'd fallen in love with the building. Perhaps it wasn't the wisest thing to base a business decision on, but if the opening day crowd was an indication of things to come, it appeared to have worked. "Maybe," he shrugged, "but look at this place. You turned a pig into a purse." Julie smiled. "Be careful. Your Yankee roots are showing." "What?" The transplanted New Yorker feigned innocence. I made a silk purse from a sow's ear. If you're going to fit in around here, you're going to have to work on your vocabulary. Your money will only get you so far." He dipped his chin, acknowledging her barb. "Words of wisdom I'll take to heart." The front door opened again and they both turned to look. A trio of women, young enough they needed to be carded, walked in. Scott returned his attention to Julie. "Roseanne said you had something for us to sample." "Yep." Pushing through the saloon-style swinging door, she beckoned him to follow. "Come on. Your bride-to-be called earlier. She's going to be a little late. She had to go over to the Yellow Rose. Something about a guest arriving without a reservation." "I'm surprised Kay would need her help. Wonder what the problem is." "No idea. Not my problem." She stopped in front of a work table holding 6 capped green bottles sans labels. "Voila! My first attempt at non-alcoholic beer." "These are for us?" Scott asked. "I wouldn't do this for anyone else." She'd been working night and day on this brew ever since Scott and Roseanne had asked her to come up with something the pregnant bride could drink at their upcoming wedding. The challenge had been something she'd mostly enjoyed, but the time had come for a second opinion, and she was having doubts. She chewed on her bottom lip. "I'm not making any guarantees. Could taste like rattlesnake piss for all I know." Not exactly true. She tried it and thought the version good enough to bottle a few samples, but you never knew what someone else might think. Scott's phone belted out a synthetic version of Mendelssohn's Wedding March. He held up his index finger. "Hold on a sec. I gotta take this." "No problem." Julie leaned a hip against the work table, crossed her arms, and studied her toes while her guest pressed the phone to his ear. "Roseanne, honey, what's up?" "Uh-huh." Scott glanced at Julie. "Just showed up? You didn't know he was coming?" Julie shrugged her shoulders, indicating she didn't have a clue what was going on as she listened to the one-sided conversation. "Okay, I'm sure Julie won't mind if I bring the bottles home." Holding Julie's gaze, he raised an eyebrow in question. She shook her head. "Not a problem. I'll just box them up for you," she whispered, then went in search of an empty box, leaving Scott to finish up his phone call with his fiancée. From past experience, she knew they usually ended their conversations with a bunch of mushy, fake kisses and sappy endearments. It was enough to make a single woman with no prospects sick. She certainly wasn't looking for a relationship. The microbrewery she started when she moved to Butte Plains was all the lover she needed. Sure, it made demands on her time, but that was as far as it went. She owned it, not the other way around, and as long as she stayed behind the scenes, she could reap the benefits of her little hobby brewery, and no one would connect Julie Davis with the person she'd been before her life went to hell in a handbasket. And it kept her busy, gave her a reason to get up every morning. She'd held various food industry jobs since she turned 15 and got a job washing dishes at the restaurant across the street from the apartment building she'd grown up in. The extra income had been a welcome addition to their single-parent household. Plus, her mother, who was a waitress at the restaurant, could keep an eye on her teenage daughter. Dishwashing had led to waitressing. Then, when she'd turned 21, she'd learned to tend bar. The extra tips she'd earned behind the bar helped pay her way at the local junior college, where she'd received an associate's degree in business management. To celebrate completing her last exam, she'd purchased a lottery ticket and a full tank of gas on the way home. Handing over the cash for her purchases, she laughed with the cashier, a funny little man by the name of Marty, about all the things they'd do if they struck it rich. Never in her wildest dreams did she think she would actually win a lottery jackpot or believe the casual conversation could put her in danger. Her conversation with Marty Scruggs was one she almost didn't live to regret. She'd all but forgotten about the lottery ticket she'd purchased and hung on the refrigerator door with a cheap magnet advertising a local auto repair shop. Her mother had seen it, though, and while she dressed for her first day shift behind the bar, her mom checked the winning numbers. For as long as she lived, she'd never forget the scream that brought her running from her room, her black uniform slacks forgotten on the floor as she hurried to do battle with whoever was murdering her mother. She found her mom sitting at the tiny kitchenette table, her eyes filled with tears, her whole body shaking. Nearly incoherent, it took several minutes to understand what her mother was saying. "You won," she said. "You won!" "I won what?" Jan Harris waved a crumpled slip of paper in the air. She'd grabbed it, realizing what it was at the same time her mother engulfed her in a rib-crushing hug. "Oh, baby, you won!" She'd extricated herself from the embrace and smoothed the slip of paper out on the table. "How many numbers did I get right?" She rarely played the lottery, allowing herself one $2 play a couple of times a year, usually on her birthday or when she'd passed a particularly difficult class. She won a few dollars once by matching 3 of the winning numbers. She'd cashed in the winning ticket and bought her and her mom both milkshakes at Sonic to celebrate the win. "I want a chocolate malt this time. How about you?" "Hun, you can buy the whole damn drive-in. You won!" Laughing, she'd stared at the ticket. How much had been up for grabs last night? Several $100 million, she recalled, but in truth, she hadn't paid much attention to the jackpot total when she'd purchased the ticket. Why would she? The odds of winning were more than enough. To add malted milk powder to a milkshake was roughly the same as reaching for the sky and coming up with a handful of stars. In other words, zilch. It says here there was only one winner for last night's drawing. Did you buy the ticket at the usual place? Her mom was breathless, but at least forming whole sentences now. She thought about the question. The gas station on Travis Highway. I always stop there on my way home from school. Mom held up her cell phone. On the screen was a photo of the self-service station she knew well. Is this the place? Yeah, but Mom, hundreds of people, no, thousands probably bought tickets there this week. That doesn't mean I won. The numbers, baby. Look at the numbers. Willing to humor her mom, but still excited to see if she'd won enough to maybe put a down payment on a new car, she said, read them off to me, and I'll check them against the ticket. Her mom read them slowly. She ticked each one off before moving on to the next. Let me see, she said, reaching for the cell phone. Are you sure those are last night's numbers? Positive. See for yourself. Jan handed over the phone and began dancing around their small kitchen. A billionaire! My daughter is a billionaire! Mom, she laughed. Stop being ridiculous! I'm not being ridiculous. I'm celebrating. You're a billionaire! I'm not. The breath froze in her lungs. There on the screen was the date of the draw. She held the ticket up, found the same date printed beneath the numbers, the same numbers displayed on the screen. There's got to be a mistake. No mistake, sweetheart. You won! Her mom sat down and reached for a pen from the mason jar filled with writing implements they kept against the wall, with the napkin holder and salt and pepper shakers. Hurry up and sign it on the back so no one can steal it and claim it's theirs. She signed what had been her legal name at the time, Jennifer Harris, on the line marked with the X. If she'd known the horror awaiting her because of that ticket, she would have stuffed it down the garbage disposal and said good riddance. But she hadn't, and she was Julie Davis now, a woman with no past and a lonely future ahead of her. Who said money could buy happiness? And that is the first chapter of The Reluctant Billionaire Bride. And as you can see, the billionaire in this story is the bride and not the groom. So I thought I'd just kind of turn that on its head. And if you want to find out more about what happened in regards to her winning ticket and who will walk into her life and upset everything, then please grab a copy. If you are a member of Kindle Unlimited, then read it for free. That and the other two books in the series are all in the Kindle Unlimited library. So grab those and have fun. And if you enjoy the reads, please leave a review. Thanks so much. Talk to you later. Bye.